I hereby introduce to you Mr. Michael Veazey.
Welcome to Amazing FBA. This episode is brought to you by the Private Label Process, the course that we just created, which is launching on the 19th of November. Good news, if you like free stuff and you like good stuff at the same time, the Private Label Process has a contest on until the 18th of November, midnight UK time. So what is on offer? It's simple. The Private Label Process online course, which takes you A to Z, soup to nuts, zero to hero, from know nothing to launched with your first private label product within 6 months. Of course, if you have a full-time job and children, or a full-time job and a property empire to run, or whatever else, it'll probably take you a few more months. Let's be real, but you could certainly do it in less as well. That's worth £395 or $500, and that's what it's going on sale for when it launches. And I will give that to you absolutely for free to the lucky winner of the contest. So to enter the contest, you just need to do two things. Number one, go to amazingfba.com/contest. That's amazing, F for Freddy, B for Bertie, A for alpha.com/contest. And the second step is you give your first name, email address, and just answer the simple question, which is, what's the biggest barrier to you getting launched with a private label product? And once you do that, you'll enter for the contest. We will choose a winner on the 19th of November and announce that to you via email, and we'll announce it on the podcast and everything else as well. So very easy, no-brainer, I would have thought, if you're in any way interested, unless you've already doing tens of thousands, in which case you might want to join the 10K Collective. In which case go to amazingfba.com/10K. But if you're not and you want to be, then this course is for you. And if you can get it for free, why would you not? So get yourself over to amazingfba.com/contest, and you can enter there and get an absolutely free course. Amazing. So on with the show. Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the show. Today I want to talk about niche research, or product research as it's popularly and I think unwisely called. So let's get cracking. This is a bit of an excerpt from the PLP course, the Private Label Process course, which is launching next week at the time of recording. That is going to say about the 19th of November. We'll do a sort of soft launch where we can do pre-sales. We'll talk more about that later down the line. But basically at the moment we have the contest open. If you haven't gone for that and you want to get an absolutely free access to that course, which is selling for £395, about $500 US, get yourself over there. So let's get cracking with the niche research question. So in our last couple of episodes, we talked about, first of all, the importance of talking about thinking about the person and pain, the PAP, person and pain behind product searches, because product searches don't appear magically on Amazon. People go to Amazon to shop with particular intentions, and a lot of that stuff you cannot tell just from looking on Amazon. The main problem people who sell on Amazon have, right from the beginning all the way through to more advanced sellers who should know better, is they get obsessed with Amazon. And yes, it is an incredible marketplace, but you've got to start with people, and people buy products. And at the end of it as well, in order to sell it to people, and people buy offers, they buy marketing offers. That is either the photography or the video marketing or whatever else you put around your brand. And we'll be talking about that in great detail. At least if you remember the PLP course, you get huge amounts of detail on that. Actionable stuff, not just overwhelming theory, but very actionable stuff, I have to say. But nevertheless, there is a lot that goes into a brand, but it starts with a person. So if you haven't started with that, then stop worrying about this stuff because it's premature. Okay, the next thing to say is that as we talked about in the previous episode, is that you have to have a disciplined, structured way of doing it. So we start with a bunch of ideas. Most people are very lazy, or not lazy, maybe, I don't know, they lack confidence. Let's be nice. They don't, for whatever reason, come up with anything like enough ideas. You need to have hundreds of product keyword ideas. I don't have to have hundreds of different ideas, but one idea that becomes multiple niche little micro products, right? The idea of podcasting might lead to a microphone, boom stand, a shock stand, a tripod, lighting, just to name a few obvious things that are right in front of me. Leads for phones, leads to plug into the computer. But there's lots of stuff, some of which would be advisable, some wouldn't. But as I said before, again, to reiterate, because everyone messes this up, when you're writing, you're not editing. So when you write, you just write. And when you're brainstorming, you just brainstorm. Just get it out there. Good, bad, the ugly, indifferent, whatever. Don't judge. Just get it out there. However, then we want to filter. So we go from 1 or 2 ideas to lots and lots and lots of micro ideas or keywords, basically. And then we want to filter down through using tools on Amazon to find out exactly what we should be really focusing on that is both interesting and has some kind of market for it, some demand and manageable competition, right? Worth winning. Good demand, and winnable. In other words, competition isn't too much for you and your budget. And as we talked about in the last episode, if you didn't catch that, amazingfba.com/287, you can catch it there. This will be at amazingfba.com/286. Always by the numbers. Always the numbers. Okay, it's always episode numbers. If you're looking for anything, and we've got a lot of episodes now to navigate. 288 for this one. So what was I saying? Oh, yes. The basic idea there is that we go through a process where you eliminate things quickly. So you're either generating lots of ideas and you don't judge, but equally, when you are editing, you're harsh. You just go, no demand, no. Too big a budget needed. It's more than I have, no. It's too much competition, no. And you eliminate down to things. So you're not over-analyzing things that don't deserve a lot of analysis. I cannot say strongly enough how important that is. Otherwise, you'll spend 10 times, in my opinion, in my experience, working myself and latterly with clients for 2.5 years now. You're going to spend way too much time on it. You go miserable and you just quit. And that's just my experience of what most people do, right? So instead of that, be efficient. That said, then, all those things are important preludes to what we're going to deal with today, which is the detail of how we eliminate stuff from our inquiries, and what's left has made it through a filtering process is better quality. And then we're going to take it to the next stage, which is the niching, the next step, big picture step, which after you find some viable looking keywords, / product types, then we go through to, can we get this at a decent buying price that there's profit left in it? Can we differentiate it? And can we get the quality? So those are the sourcing questions. So that's how it fits in the process. So let's get going. And by the way, there will be a video that has a slideshow in it. So you will get much more value if you see that at the blog, amazingfba.com/288. If you are listening to the audio, if you're watching the video and you're driving, stop it. Go home and do that later. You can do that. We're not going to take it away from you. So if you're listening, then get what you can from the audio, which will be a lot. Hopefully I'll try and make it clear, but you'll get more from the videos. And that's true for the previous 2 episodes as well. So amazingfba.com/286 will give you the how to generate lots of product ideas and focus on the person, really critical. Then 287 will give you the basics overview of how to eliminate products, ideas from your inquiries that aren't good. And this one is the detail. So let's get cracking. First of all, pan for gold, look for demand. 2 common errors that you get with looking for demand level, or in other words, how much money is being made on page 1 of Amazon, broadly speaking. The first one is people often measure only an average product. An average contains a multitude of sins. An average is kind of a fiction. It doesn't really exist. Without getting too philosophical about it, it's not really worth it. You need to look at the whole of page 1 and look at the overall shape of it. The second newbie error is obsessing with how many units sold per month. If you're selling something for £100 with a lovely fat profit margin attached to it, $120 or whatever it is, you don't need to sell many units to make a good profit. Remember the 10K Collective recently has been launching a lovely product for a cost in the UK of around £375, I think. So you don't need to be selling many units to be making good revenue. So think about revenue rather than units. Units is kind of a red herring. The only time you need units to be is for making calculations around launch costs. And that is different, but that's not your first market choice criterion, I would say. It should be about revenue. The third error is a really big one, taking out average revenue or the revenue for the first page without stripping the top 2 or 3 products out. It's really critical, and we'll look into that in more detail in a second. But if you are not accounting for the market dominance of the top products, then you can end up in an unwinnable market very quickly. So if you've got a market where page 1 is doing $100,000 of revenue, and you can get that, by the way, by using, say, Jungle Scout, downloading that CSV file, which is a spreadsheet file, and then opening that in Excel and then just doing a sum or adding up all the revenue numbers, right? Simple. Takes a bit of time, which is why you shouldn't be doing it. If it looks rubbish to start with, just move on. Yeah, see the previous points. But if you look at that and you say, okay, $100,000, that looks great. But then if the top two products between them are doing, say, $50,000, that means that everyone else is fighting over the scraps. That looks like a tough market to enter. Okay, so always strip out the top 2 or 3 products and still if it's still a worthwhile market to enter. Particularly in the UK or Germany, depending on the product line. But often you'll find, say, okay, page one is doing, say £20,000 or 25,000 euros or whatever across the whole of page one. Now, if you've got a similar scenario where, say, it's £20,000 across page one, and the top 2 products are taking out £10,000 of that, then you're splitting £10,000 between all the other listings on page one, which means that everyone's, looking at quite a small amount of the pie left to divide, and that's not a pretty picture. So just be careful with that kind of situation. So the next thing we've got to do is check the competitive landscape. First of all, brand dominance is more or less the same stuff I've been talking about right from the off, really. Strip out the top 2 sellers by revenue, and is there enough revenue to divide up left? If there isn't, you're going to be picking the scraps up from the rich man's table, as they used to say. Not worth it, not a fun place to be. Is there a household name in there? If you're trying to sell training shoes and you discover, to your surprise perhaps, that Nike is extremely dominant there, then that's not a market to go into, because unless there is, caveat is, unless they are really very highly priced and there's room at the bottom between some rubbish sort of generic type one sold by the Chinese factories with no sort of sense of style or branding, and then there's Nike at sort of $80 a pair, and those are down there. Maybe there's a mid price point that you could dominate, but mid market is difficult to dominate. So I would go in with caution. Just have a very, very clear strategy of differentiation from the great guys. I mean, one common strategy is affordable premium. So say Nike sells training shoes that cost $100 plus, and you do a really similar, a very high quality shoe, but only for $40. Okay, then and everyone else is like $10 nasty stuff. That can be good positioning. You got to think it through. But don't just wander into a niche which has dominated by a household name and just assume that you can just work on the numbers. The fact that the household name is a brand that sticks in people's heads changes how that market operates. You must account for that. The second thing is private label sellers. If there's somebody in there with several products that dominate the keyword search results, for example, copper bracelet, if there's like 4 or 5 listings ascribable to one particular seller, which links to the idea of, is 1 or 2 products taking a big percentage of the revenue. This is slightly different because if they are visually dominant and they have a lot of listings, that is a slightly different problem, but still a problem. And again, you want to think about, is this a winnable market? Am I going to have to take down these guys or just basically replace the top 6 positions? And if so, can I afford to do that? And am I going to just end up in a price war? And if that is the case, you probably want to avoid it. Even if you're going to do it, you need to go in knowing it's being a big fight, having plenty of money in the bag, and being very courageous. For most people, lots of money and lots of courage aren't common in my experience, so I would probably avoid it if you're just getting out of the starting blocks and you're new. So I just want to reiterate something that we talked about with finding the person and the pain on online and off Amazon communities, because it's not enough to just find people who want the products, i.e. your potential customers, off Amazon, but you need to look at the competition that exists in a particular market, because if they decide to come onto Amazon and you've ignored their presence, they're going to wipe you out. Like if you're selling trainers on Amazon and you've been living under a rock or on the moon or something, maybe you don't know there's this company called Nike that sells trainers. It's kind of unlikely. It's a bit of a silly example, but you get the idea. And if you haven't accounted for their existence, even if they're not on Amazon yet, they might turn around next month and go, okay, we're going to cut a special deal with Amazon and come and kill that market. So be aware of mega competition that exists outside of Amazon in case they decide to come on Amazon. And a lot of people are these days. A lot of big brands are now. So look around non-social media, Google it, text search, reverse image search, look in forums, look in Reddit, social media. And by the way, these are basically places where you're going to find out what your potential customers, your potential buyers are interested in. And the reason that you're doing that is because from the buyer's perspective, from the customer perspective, what you think of as your competition is their alternatives to your product. So you need to see it through the customer's lens, as it were. You need to see it through their eyes and look at the alternative choices that they have. In other words, your competition, right? But try and look at it as their alternatives, because you're going to have to find a differentiation point if you're going to do that. So go around and look at the conversation that consumers are having, and then follow that trail and go and look at the competition. So look for signals in the communities, like mentions of products and brands a lot, advertising, if people are advertising to communities, probably because they're finding success with those products. Look for advertising in your own social media user channels. Hopefully you are a user of the type of product you're considering selling. It's a lot easier to do a good job if you are. Try not to go down the rabbit hole of, oh, these numbers look attractive and I'm going to sell fidget spinners or whatever the latest trend is. Very likely to disappear. And unless you can move hyper fast, which you normally can't on private labeling especially, then it's not worth following trends, in my opinion, not really short-term ones. You follow long-term trends, which is really, really savvy, like everyone's getting older, the population is aging, and more silver surfers, as they call them, are coming online. Yeah, that's a long-term trend, and you can't go wrong following a long-term trend. But if you're talking about, oh, fidget spinners are going mad now, next month they're saturated, the month after that everyone's suspended for selling them because of some issue of safety. That's exaggerated by maybe a factor of 2, but that's almost more or less what played out about a year ago with fidget spinners, for example. So coming back again to this idea, be a user of your own products, really. Look for advertising in your own social media channels, YouTube, Facebook, Google retargeting. See who's advertising at you and the stuff that makes you buy as well. And then go and look at online store sites for very specific brands that come out of all those things, like signals in user communities and in advertising. By the way, this sounds like a lot of work. It is, and you really should dig deep before you even go on Amazon. Otherwise, if you're lazy, you're just asking to be taken to the cleaners by people who aren't lazy or have a lot of money behind them. So you're going to have to be scrappy but savvy. Yeah. So in other words, you've got to be willing to fight and find some cunning little corner of the internet that isn't dominated yet. And given that there are hundreds of millions of product lines on Amazon, there is bound to be a corner that you can make your own if you look hard enough. And it's not an easy game. Keep the momentum up, go fast and hard, and eliminate early. That I cannot stress that enough. Otherwise, if you analyze everything in detail, you will go nuts and you will quit, and that's not smart. Analyze in detail that which is worth analyzing in detail. If it obviously sucks, you don't need to do anything else. Here's a rule of thumb for you. If it looks bad on the back of an envelope, do a few marketing numbers or profit and loss, it's going to look worse on the spreadsheet, and then it's going to look worse in reality. So if it looks bad on a superficial glance, it probably is. Move on. So let's talk about reviews next as a way of assessing whether a market's good to go into. The first newbie error is ignoring thousands of reviews for top products. Not a common error, but it does happen. If you're a bit of a major optimist, that's probably, something that you want to be careful with. But the second newbie error is more common, underestimating how hard it is to get reviews now. If you need a lot of reviews, and we'll talk about in a second, do you? I will question that idea in some markets. But if you need a lot of reviews, that's going to be very, very hard to get. Some really savvy sellers that I know in a mastermind I ran recently were saying they're getting about 1% review rate now, meaning if they sell 100 units or 100 orders of products, they'll get 1 review. So if you need to get 500 units out of the door just to get 5 reviews, that's going to be expensive and hard to do and take time. Now, that review percentage is very low. It can probably be improved a bit, but this guy is pretty damn savvy. He's been selling on Amazon for years. So that's probably not untypical in some markets. There may be something wrong with his account, and maybe it's looking out, maybe Amazon's doing something odd, but more than 2 or 3% is going to be going pretty well. So you're going to have to shift 100 units to get 3 reviews in most markets, even if you're doing a reasonably decent job. Obviously, it's worth trying to improve that, but to go in assuming you're going to master that from the off is naive. So don't underestimate that. Having said that, the good news is a lot of people overestimate how many reviews you need in smaller markets. It's mostly about the average review. And I don't know if you've even said that something here, but if you've got a 5-star average showing and nobody else on your page has got more than about 15, 20, 30 reviews, or if they have like 150 reviews but they're 4-star average, you'll probably still beat them. The average review, because it shows up visually next to your product listing and search results, is absolutely critical, but the number of reviews isn't. You do need to keep adding to those reviews over time, because if somebody gives you a 1-star review and you only have 5 reviews, it's going to shoot down the average, really damage you. So you should keep getting reviews, but as you're assessing a market, don't be obsessed with, I've got to get 100 reviews because everyone else has. I don't think that's true. From my own experience and other people, that's pretty robust. The average rating is really what counts. So don't go crazy on silly things. So when it comes to then the checking competition, sooner or later you need to check the actual listings in detail, and only do this because it's time and energy consuming. Only do this if it checks out. If it's a lousy market, if there's $100,000 being made a month, but the top 3 listings are taking 80,000 of that, just walk away, save your time. You don't need to prove to yourself in painful detail that it's rubbish. If it's obviously rubbish, walk away. And again, I can't stress that enough. It's time and energy usage that will determine your wins or failures in so much of business, but particularly in a numbers-based business like this that is also tough on your brain because there's a lot of analysis or choice, and that's mentally hard work. So minimize the amount of data you consume. I can't stress that enough. Having said that, if you got to the point where everything else checks out, the demand is good, it looks affordable in your budget, the competition is manageable, okay, then we look in detail. The first problem, as I said just a second ago, paralysis analysis. Do not overanalyze things. If it's obviously rubbish, walk away. Only analyze that which looks to be good in the first place. Remember, the end game here in this part of our niche selection is product idea elimination. We want to get rid of ideas. We want to generate ideas in the pick phase, phase A, lots and lots and lots of ideas, and in phase B here, the pie, product idea elimination. Got to decide which pie you want to slice off. So eliminate until you come down to 2 or 3 keywords, basically. Do not bother analyzing details if the overview tells you it's a no-go. I've said that before. It's so important to get that into your head. It's hard to not get caught up in paralysis analysis, but you must fight that. Competitive listings, newbie error number 2, skipping analysis if the market overview looks promising. This is less common, to be honest, but people do that. I do know the most extreme version is a member of the masterminds that I ran a while ago. He went to the Canton Fair and literally bought a container load of several product lines without doing any analysis at all. That kind of defines the extreme. At least he took action. I kind of admire that in a way, but it's kind of insane as well. What you need to be is a big action taker, but based on data analysis. But you don't want to get paralyzed either. So yeah, the solution is very, very simple. Actually, people think it's complex. No, it isn't. You just need to dismiss everything unless it looks good. And if it does look good, then you need to analyze to see if it really is good. And if it looks really good under strong analysis, then you move it forwards to the next stage. It's kind of simple. It's a knockout game. It is just that simple. Do not skimp on detail before you place an order and spend months sourcing something. Do look at the market data. So in-depth analysis covers the following things: photos, reviews, and text, the title, the bullets, and the description. So let's get into that. Let's talk about photos first. Avoid analysis paralysis. Only do in-depth analysis if the market looks viable. I'm saying it again because it's got to be rammed home. If it does, though, you should be investigating the competition in great detail. You really got to understand the choices that your consumers have. Look at the main photos, look at the search result photos and the price points. If you've got poor looking products at a decent price, that's a good sign. You can probably do better than that. Could you produce a better product, stronger, more user friendly, or a more beautiful product? And here's an example to have a look at of a photo. So if we have a quick look at this recording, this photo, sorry. And by the way, you won't be able to see this on an audio because you can't, but I'm just go over this quickly and then go and check it out on the video version. It would be well worth your while at amazingfba.com/288. So in this case, we can analyze quite simply. They're using a model to show the product in use. It's a lifestyle shot of some kind of gentleman's, dressing gown. So you probably are allowed a model. Just check the terms of service with main photos, and then he's only using 4 of 9 possible photos, so that's an obvious weakness. There's lots of variations, so that's going to be harder to compete with, and so there's some good things here and some bad things, so that's the sort of thing you want to be at. Let's talk about reviews when it comes to in-depth analysis. We're not talking about the numbers of reviews now overall, but some more in-depth stuff. Rating is an important thing. The review rating is the average review. Most sellers undervalue this a lot. You can beat hundreds of reviews if you have a 5-star average. If everyone's 4.7 to 5-star average, though, that might be a hint that that's not an easy market to win. You're going to have to be excellent to compete or just stay out of it. Everyone else is 3 to 4-star average, then, it might be asking for trouble as well. It's hard to know. If everyone hates the product, maybe it just doesn't do the job. So you just need to find that sort of sweet spot in between. The sweet spot, I think, is that a few products have 3 to 4-star average reviews. which aren't very good products. Many have 4.5 to 5-star products, reviews. So they're winning products. So there's a possibility of being a winner and of loser. And then you can make sure you're on the winning side by getting a great product quality, good listing shots, etc. If the market looks over competitive, though, just walk away. That's always the key. And the key is you've got to just kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince, or just crunch through a lot of data, get over that and get at peace with that. But you don't have to crunch a lot of data per possible keyword. The key is eliminate. Maybe, put that on one side. Give out, done, no. Maybe, yes. Okay, the yes looks really good. Let's focus on that. Well, actually, on analysis, it's a no. Okay, fine, next. Yeah, just be brutal, as it were. Successful products. Check products with high sales and high average review. What do people like? And this is looking at individual listings now. Why is it 5-star reviews? What could be improved on a 1 to 2-star reviews? On any given product's going to have 5 and 1-star reviews in most cases. Remember that 3-star reviews are more balanced. They may actually be more helpful. 1-star reviews tend to be people having a bad hair day and being grumpy. They may actually be a bit unhelpful because they're normally a bit extreme, right? But you should read all of them, and it does take a lot of work and time. So only do this. I can't stress it enough. Only do this if it looks seriously worthwhile from the overview perspective. Otherwise, walk away. Less successful products. If you check products with low sales, and low average review, what could be improved? Remember, 3-star reviews are more balanced as well. So, in other words, find out why things are selling well and why things are less successful. Right? Think about a point of difference, and this is absolutely mission critical. What do consumers seem to want, and what is they want that's not being provided? That's a gap between supply and demand, I would say, and that is what we want. You're always looking for a gap between demand and supply. In-depth analysis of the text. Words always have two aims on Amazon, and this is going to be a theme throughout that we have to bear in mind when we're either analyzing other people's listings or creating our own. Ranking, which is to do with the algorithm and getting the listing seen, and conversion, which is for humans, and that's to get people to buy. And they're really quite separate aims. Ranking is all about the keywords, individual keywords like copper, bracelet, etc., and keyword phrases like arthritis bracelet for women. And the latter, I think, is more powerful. There are big debates that go on all the time. I put it this way. Amazon's algorithm is very complex. Nobody knows exactly how it works. A lot of people have some serious data, and they can analyze that. If they're sellers with 50, 60, 70, 100 SKUs, okay, they have more data to go on than the average person just talking about things on Facebook group randomly. That said, the customer search term is what the customer is actually thinking. And given that Amazon is very customer centric, I think they're basically always going to come down to what the exact phrases are that people use eventually. So I think if in doubt, you need to obsess with exact search terms as people actually put them into the search bar. That's what I mean by search term as opposed to keywords. So yeah, trying to rank for the word copper anyway is a bit of a waste of time. It's going to be ridiculously hard. So check the ranking for important keywords based on what we just said, being keyword phrases that people actually type in, arthritis bracelet for women, for example, and use tools like Helium 10, Cash Cow Pro, Market Intelligence, etc. Right? Conversion is an interesting one. Read the text and assess the value for conversion, like the title. Is it boring? Is it stuff with keywords? Is it lack important keywords? Is the title easy to read? All features, no benefits. So you're really analysing the competition in detail, which is also a very useful prelude for yourself to be writing an excellent listing on the other side of the sourcing process. So, we've got a couple of examples here from Del Rosa men's cotton robe. They just say things in the bullets like premium woven cotton lounge robe for daily use. I mean, it's pretty dull. Premium is an overused word. It just tells you what it is. Cotton lounge robe is a keyword, so that will help it rank, but it's not any excitement in it. There's no charisma. It's got a little bit of useful stuff. Durable, 100% cotton fabric that's easy on the skin and long-lasting. That's not too bad. That's quite a reasonable reason to buy. But durable, such a dull word. I mean, and everyone uses it so corporate. It's not good for consumer marketing. If you're doing business to consumer marketing, just because you spend all day in a business does not mean that your consumers talk business. Durable, sustainable, environmental, solution-based. These are sort of $10 words, as they call them in the States. I'm trying to avoid swearing here. That are just, don't have any immediate meaning. Don't help you sell stuff. So anybody's using words like that, you've got a bit of a head start on them. Bullet points, how many bullet points they use? Can you skim read them? Is there detail in there? Is it mostly features? They have clear benefits. A lot of people don't. Is it keyword rich? A lot of people miss out on keywords as well. So analyze other people's texts in detail. Again, don't go absolutely mad with this. Analyze the winners and the losers. Pick 2 or 3 to analyze in detail, but don't try and analyze every single listing on one page and read every single review. You'll be there all year. If somebody's got 1,000 reviews, then just take a sample, right? I have seen it done. I've done it myself. And being excessively thorough is not going to get you wins in this game. You need to be thorough only where needed. So if you're preparing to source, you need to clarify the keywords, clarify the types of products, and set a target buy price. So this is more or less at the end of this process now. If you're coming to the end of eliminating the product idea elimination phase, you want to narrow it down to one niche and 3 or 4 keywords. And then setting the target buy price is going to be coming up in upcoming videos. Well, if you're in the PLP course, it will be. If you're just listening to the podcast, then we'll probably deal with how you set a target buy price, but that's the next thing you got to do. The final points I want to make is differentiation. Differentiate or die is what I'm saying here. If everything looks the same, like everybody's got a black spatula, it's death to profits, because the only comparison point between things that look exactly the same is the price. And sooner or later, it just becomes a price war and it strips all the profit out of the market. So you have to differentiate. Here are some things about differentiation. First of all, base it on the brand, the person and pain. Who's an underserved type of person? Is it men in a mostly female market? Is it women? Is it older people in a youth-focused market, etc.? What values are underserved? All right, is it environmental friendliness? Is it a spiritual solution to things? What pain is not addressed? Is rheumatoid arthritis in the ankle not addressed because everyone's obsessed with wrists, for example? Be very, very specific. Again, there's an absolute rule of internet marketing. It's all about the niche. The riches are in the niches, as they say in America. Rather horrible rhyme, but it's true. Differentiate and function. If it's similar to other devices, make the aim different. For example, is it a massager, but it's for arthritis in your wrists? Is it different looking design, but with the same aim? For example, a massage device that looks like a bracelet, but it's still there to massage. So you can flip those things on their heads. Extra functions, multiple speeds in a massage thing. Or you could go the opposite way, strip out functions. It's only got one massage speed, but it's lighter, cheaper, and simpler for that. That can be very, very smart strategy, by the way, if you are trying to look for a way that's both a win for the consumer and going to make things cheaper for you. That's basically one of the fundamental ideas behind the Blue Ocean strategy, which is an amazing book written by some very grown-up business people. It's not just, oh, I made $100,000 on Amazon and now I'm writing a book about it. I mean, I've been tempted to do that, but if I write a book about Amazon selling, it's not going to be based on just my sales. It's going to be based on pulling together expertise from other people. And I think you got to be careful who you follow in terms of strategy. But the Blue Ocean strategy is an amazing book. And one of the basic ideas in it is that you change your product in a way that the consumer cares about. And often you can combine that with stripping features out, which means it's cheaper for you to make because it's a simpler device. It's often lighter, which means it's cheaper to ship and store and ship to consumers from Amazon. And it's easier for the consumer to operate more robust. There are many virtues that come from simplifying, so do not overlook that. Everybody tends to want to add features or change things, and that adds to the cost. And then they discover, to their disappointment, when I say everybody, I mean Amazon sellers, the ones I've worked with anyway. And what happens then is that they put it on the market, and the consumer actually just isn't going to pay extra for that, but you put your costs up. So try, if you can, and this is a massive, massive hint. I really wish somebody had told me this 3 years ago when I was really in the thick of sourcing a lot of new products for the first time. Probably more like 4 years actually now. But either way, keep it simple. And if you can simplify the product and make a virtue of that for the consumer and for yourself, that is a win. And that's going to be a sellable product that actually makes a profit. So that's a seriously good way of thinking. Then talk about design differentiation. Can you do different materials? If everyone's got something plastic, can you make it metal? If everyone's got metal, can you do wood? You've got to think about the sourcing implications for that. And you're not really going to know that until you've looked into sourcing. And you may find you have to dump that idea, which is okay, which is why we try and come up with 3 or 4 ideas rather than just one that we fall in love with too early. But if something's made of plastic, you're going to have molds made if it's a unique design, whereas wood and metal tends to be a more per piece cost. So it might well be Worth exploring, going from plastic to metal or wood in some cases. Wood's a bit complex in terms of importing rules, but I'm not going to get into detail here. But the basic idea, change the materials. You could change the shape. Again, change is a difficult word with private label. We're not really into custom manufacturing, but you can find off-the-shelf versions that are different from what else is out there, and same with materials. By the way, if something looks the same as everything else is out there, the chances are pretty high that somebody else owns the patent on that. So do make sure you do a patent search as well. It's beyond the scope of today's podcast, but it's really important to recognize there's no such thing as a quote generic product. That doesn't exist. Somebody designed every single product. They didn't go on a tree. It's not God-given, it's man-made, and therefore there will be a patent out there. So don't assume that if it looks the same as anything else, you can just get your hands on it. And plus, it's a differentiation issue as well. So never get something that looks just the same as something else. It's a bad idea. So I'm going to just get back to this idea. And then more obviously designed is another way you can differentiate it, right? So it looks more like care has been taken over something that's normally a bit boring or ugly, that you've taken care over. And again, we can't go too crazy because we're not custom manufacturing it in this model. You probably should be looking at doing that within the next year if you're serious about building a long-term defensible business. But if you're just private labeling to start with, I suggest you've got to keep it reasonably simple. But you look for what's out there that is not yet sold on Amazon in much bulk anyway, and that is more designed, better shape or better materials, and that's a great way to differentiate. So let me just wrap up on differentiation, because this is another absolutely critical principle. Dig deep and differentiate, the 3 Ds. Dig deep meaning really get to know your customer. We've talked about this before, but I can't emphasize enough. If you aren't close to your customer and you're just relying on numbers, the Chinese factories will beat you every time because they can produce bigger numbers. If you're relying on that, you've also got a financial problem because the Chinese factories can probably afford to manufacture cheaper than you, and or the big private label sellers in the West who have deep pockets. The only way around that is to just have a better understanding of what the customer wants and produce or find, not in the case of sourcing products that are private label, find a ready-made but really, really tailored solution for them. Hang out where they hang out, listen to the conversation and really understand their choices. So try and listen more than you speak. Don't try and sell something when you don't have any idea what people want. Really understand their choices, follow the brands, buy their products, use them and analyze the experience. So you have to therefore at some point commit deeply to a particular market or two markets as a consumer, and it is really helpful and it's much cheaper. If you're already buying hundreds of products, I mean, my wife, for example, buys hundreds of units per year of skin cream. So for her, if she was going to go into Amazon products, I would just say, look, just keep it simple. Yes, skin cream has a few issues around it. It's consumable, but you're obsessed with this. Therefore, we should go into this market. Done, you know? And in my case, that wouldn't be wise because I don't, I mean, it might not be bad because my wife consumes the product. So there's lots of units coming through the door, actually. But you need to be very, very close to a market, either a consumer yourself or literally married to or living with somebody who is a consumer. That's how well you should understand it. The differentiation thing, you've got to really clarify the customer needs and what they say about the current choices, and then look at what they say. If only they did X, Y, and Z, and then really develop a clear outcome for your product. So it's got to do X, Y, Z. It mustn't do A, B, C. So for example, a coffer bracelet must be light and pretty, unlike everything else out there, which is maybe heavy and clunky, but also it's got to not be heavy. It's got to not leave green marks on my arm or whatever it is, based on the read reviews and consumer feedback. You might say it's quite standard to have it in a presentation box, but actually you could just put it in some kind of light carry bag, which proofs it keeps it safe and is kind of less giftable, but you know, it's actually more practical and weighs like half an amount and is cheaper for you to source. You get the idea. So in other words, you need to be very, very clear what your product should do, what it shouldn't do, and what is standard, but what you can strip out, potentially, not always the case, but sometimes, before you even go sourcing. I can't stress enough, if you really understand what the consumer wants, you make clear decisions about what needs you're going to satisfy and in what way. Before you go sourcing, you'll save yourself months of work going around in circles on Alibaba, hoping that suppliers are going to provide the answer to you. The supplier's job is not to clarify what you want. That's your job, absolutely 100%. Their job is to make the stuff, to show you what they make and to make it for you. If you are utterly unclear when you wander into a supermarket what kind of food you want, and you just want food, and it's one of those giant ones with 25 aisles, you're going to be there for hours and totally confused. And listen, this is how I used to shop. It was a nightmare. I just don't do that anymore because it's so miserable. I mean, for starters, I normally shop online, or frankly, my wife is more into shopping than I am, so she does a lot of the shopping, which I'm very grateful for. But if I do go shopping, I go in knowing what I want. I try and know where it is. And I go grab it and get out. And you need to do the same thing with your sourcing in China, whether it's in person at the Canton Fair, which I don't advise because it will just blow your brain, which is all very well. It sounds cool to say you've been to Canton, but I don't know many people who've actually found it that useful for actually finding a product. They find it very useful for connecting to other suppliers. And if their supplier is at the Canton Fair or will make the trip, that's really powerful. But don't do that. And Alibaba is the same thing. It's the Canton Fair online, right? It's just mind-blowing. You need to go in with a clear idea of what you want. So this brings us to the next thing, which is to get onto the sourcing module, which is the next thing coming up. So I hope that was useful stuff. Choosing a market is a difficult thing in some ways. It's never going to be easy, and it's not easy now on Amazon to find opportunities. It never was really. You had a lot of things that looked like opportunities, but they were short term. And by the time you got your private label product to market, the market had changed. Now that still happens, but I think the only solution is to have a longer term plan. So know that there's reasonably steady demand, and you should use tools like Helium 10 or Viral Launch, whatever, that give you trends on Amazon over time. And is it seasonal? Is it trending up? Is it just one of those flash in the pan things that is, sexy this year for 3 months and then gone? And you should use Google Trends as well. And you should just really know the market, just really actually be a consumer of something. You should know before you go to all the complex tools and be tool dependent and laptop dependent. Use your neck-top computer. If you have no Scoobies, if you have no idea at all about a market, it's probably just not a good idea to go into it, I think, unless you're prepared to do a lot of legwork and be prepared for the fact that legwork may not pay off. So you just have to simplify this stuff. Be a consumer of your own target market. Know them well. Get to know them really, really well. Ask lots of questions. Buy lots of products. Use them. And then you'll really have a feel for the market. And then you can find those little differentiation points. They're not going to come dropping off the trees at you. And they're not going to come from using numbers-based analysis tools only on Amazon. And that's why people find it hard. It's because they're looking the wrong way. It just doesn't make sense. It's never really made sense for anyone except the Chinese sellers who can go, right, there's a gap in the market here. We can mass produce that, tomorrow. We can get it shipped over, and within 3 months, we're in the market and dominating it. They can be just numbers driven. But unless that's you, and if you're a Chinese, factory listening to this, I'm amazed, and get in touch because you're unique. Email me. But, for the rest of us, myself included, that's just a hiding to nothing. Forget that. You must just obsess about consumer. And once you do that and you dig really seriously deep into little markets, funny little niche markets like rock climbing, which are actually not that small, but they're very niche, then you'll discover opportunities because they're always there, not lying around. You have to dig and you have to ask and you have to sweat over that. But be imaginative and talk to people. That's the number one thing. And yes, put it through an elimination process, which is mostly what we focused on in this particular episode. But nevertheless, don't rely on tools to make your thinking for you, because they never will, and never rely on Alibaba to do your thinking for you and just browse in Alibaba. That's just insane. Do not browse on Alibaba and expect to get anything meaningful from it. I mean, look, if you're the person that's the exception to the rule, I'm very happy for you, but I've not really come across anyone who can do that. So I hope that all helps. It's not an easy project, but it is by no means as impossible as people make out, because they're just doing it, in my opinion, the wrong way. If you want to get help on how to do this stuff the right way, I truly believe the PLP course, it does codify into a systematic way of doing it, but which is robust and flexible as well, and personalizable, I should say, is not even a word, but nevertheless, it's very robustly structured based on a huge amount of real life data and really sweating and grinding it out. Not just myself, not just even the 10K Collective members and other people with huge amounts of data and experience that's gone into that, but also grinding it out with mentoring clients week in, week out, trying to get them off the ground, and in some cases succeeding. In some cases they just gave up because they made it too complicated or kind of gave up too early. So keep it simple and keep going is my final advice, and that applies to any business builder. And if that's you and you've got that right mentality, you're my kind of guy or gal, and get in touch, because I love working with people who are really got the right mentality, and that is the sort of person going forward that I'm only going to be working. So if you need one-to-one help, get in touch on the mentoring side, amazingfba.com/mentoring. I do take on a select few people from time to time, and I do have some spaces at the time of recording. Who knows when you hear this if I will or not, but you can always go on the waiting list if not. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this has been helpful. I certainly think I've hammered home a few points that I'm passionate about, because I want to save you pain, whether you're paying me for mentoring or the course, or just never ever pay me, but just listen to the podcast. Either which way, I might as well save you from months of unnecessary pain, because it just doesn't have to be that hard. Thanks for listening. Speak to you in the next show. Hey there, folks. This episode is brought to you by the private label process course created by yours truly, along with Rob Sleeth, my business partner, who's helped with a lot of things, but mostly the content, and Gary, who is our trusty VA, who's done tons of editing and everything else. So it's been a team effort and months of work. It's not based on just my personal experience, although it is. I am somebody who's been in the market in Amazon, as has Rob, for several years, but it is a culmination of years being in private groups of masterminds with serious sellers, people who are doing up to $1 million a month, not just a year, and also running the 10K collective mastermind and related masterminds of sellers, collectively doing probably of the order of £15 million a year. So I don't know what that is in dollars, 18 million to $20 million, something like that. So I've had the inside track on those businesses, hour after hour of intensive labor working on their problems and solutions. So this is a culmination of all of that stuff, and we put it into a course that takes you A to Z, soup to nuts, zero to hero, from nothing, no knowledge, to launch with your first private label product. Ideally within 6 months now, just a caveat, if you have a small child, a full-time job, and a property empire, that's probably going to take you a year. Let's be realistic here. We're into realism here, but it can definitely be done in 6 months if you're focused and do 20 to 30 hours a week on it and take it seriously. So the PLP course is in 3 phases, which is phase 0, where you learn the basics of Amazon with retail arbitrage, online arbitrage. It's not an online arbitrage focus course, but we give you the basics of that, enough for you to go away and do some more work on it should you choose. Phase 1, find a generic product and get it out there. Phase 2 is private label product launch. And then the third phase is the analysis phase, where you stabilize and expand. So it's all done, 20 modules and hundreds of videos, but they're in bite-sized chunks, very actionable, very absorbable. I think it's great value. It's as complete, in my view, as courses out there that cost probably literally 9 or 10 times as much, which is kind of crazy, but certainly 5-6 times as much. So I think it's great value. If you want to check it out, go to amazingfba.com/PLP. But here's the great news. If you're listening to this before midnight on the 18th of November, and that's midnight GMT, that is Greenwich Mean Time, that is London, UK time, before that deadline, we have a contest, and the prize is very simple. You guessed it. It is access to the online video course, that is the private label process, for free for life, plus an hour of mentoring with me as well, which is valued at £100 an hour or $130 an hour. So it's basically a value of about $600 and something, absolutely free to the lucky winner. To enter that, you just need to do the following. Number 1, go to amazingfba.com/contest. That's amazing, F for Freddy, B for Bertie, A for Alpha.com/contest, CONTEST. And there you're just going to give your first name, your email, and just tell me what your biggest pain or the biggest barrier is to getting launched with a private label product. And it's very interesting to hear the responses. It's fascinating to me, so I can fine tune my training and help for people to know what that issue is. So it's going to be fascinating to share the results with you as well of that survey. So get yourself over there. If you have any interest at all in it, you may as well get it for free. amazingfba.com/contest, and that will be going away on midnight on the 18th of November, so move fast if you're interested.